Top national security officials for U.S. President Donald Trump, including his defense secretary, texted war plans for upcoming military strikes in Yemen to a group chat in a secure messaging app that included the editor-in-chief for The Atlantic, the magazine reported in a story posted online Monday. According to Assosicted Press, the National Security Council said the text chain appears to be authentic. Trump initially told reporters he was not aware that the highly sensitive information had been shared 2.5 hours after it was reported. He later appeared to joke about the breach. The material in the text chain contained operational details of forthcoming strikes on Iran-backed Houthi-rebels in Yemen, including information about targets, weapons the U.S. would be deploying, and attack sequencing, Editor-in-Chief Jeffrey Goldberg reported. It was not immediately clear if the specifics of the military operation were classified, but they often are and at the least are kept secure to protect service members and operational security. The U.S. has conducted airstrikes against the Houthis since the militant group began targeting commercial and military vessels in the Red Sea in November 2023. Just 2 hours after Goldberg received the details of the attack on March 15, the U.S. began launching a series of airstrikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. The National Security Council said in a statement that it was looking into how a journalist's number was added to the chain in the Signal group chat. In addition to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, it included Vice President JD Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Tulsi Gabbard, Trump's Director of National Intelligence. Goldberg said he received the Signal invitation from Mike Waltz, Trump's national security advisor, who was also in the group chat, and that he thought it was a hoax. He eventually concluded that it was real. Honestly, my reaction was, I think I've discovered a massive security breach in the United States national security system. Which is to say, it's almost automatically true that if the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic is being given access to this kind of information, weapon systems and packages and timing and weather in Yemen and all kinds of information about sequencing of particular kinds of events, then obviously there is a security breach, Goldberg said.
They're going back and forth. A lot of resentment directed at European allies of the United States, which obviously enhanced the credibility of this chain, because everybody in the chain sounded like the people I know who are in this administration. Nevertheless, it wasn't until Saturday that I was reasonably certain that this wasn't a hoax, that I had actually mistakenly been included in a conversation of the Principals Committee, essentially the leaders of the national security community, including the head of the CIA, in this discussion of whether the Houthis should be attacked in Yemen. Honestly, my reaction was, I think I've discovered a massive security breach in the United States national security system, which is to say, it's almost automatically true that if the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic is being given access to this kind of information, weapon systems and packages and timing and weather in Yemen and all kinds of information about sequencing of particular events, then obviously there's a security breach.
Trump administration officials mistakenly disclosed war plans in a messaging group that included a journalist shortly before the U.S. attacked Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthis. The Atlantic magazine's Jeffrey Goldberg reported that he had been added to a Signal message group which apparently included Vice President JD Vance and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. He said he had seen classified military plans for U.S. strikes on Houthi rebels, including weapons packages, targets and timing, 2 hours before the bomb struck. The report sparked a firestorm of criticism from opposition Democrats and concerns among several Republicans. The world found out shortly before 2 p.m. Eastern Time on March 15 that the United States was bombing Houthi targets across Yemen. I, however, knew 2 hours before the first bombs exploded that the attack might be coming. The reason I knew this is that Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, had texted me the war plan at 11:44 a.m. The plan included precise information about weapons packages, targets, and timing, Jeffrey Goldberg said. His report omitted the details, but Goldberg termed it a shockingly reckless use of a Signal chat. Accounts that appeared to represent Vice President JD Vance, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, and senior National Security Council officials were assembled in the chat group, Goldberg wrote. Joe Kent, Trump's nominee for National Counterterrorism Center Director, was apparently on the signal chain despite not yet being Senate-confirmed. National Security Council spokesperson Brian Hughes said the chat group appeared to be authentic. The Defense Secretary also defended the military operation discussed in the chat, citing its success. When pressed by reporters, Hegseth criticized Goldberg as a deceitful and highly discredited journalist and resisted questions about the content of the messages. House of Representatives Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican, said the breach had been a mistake, but argued that the chat showed top-level officials doing their job, doing it well. Democratic lawmakers demanded an investigation, casting the episode as a national security scandal. This is one of the most stunning breaches of military intelligence that I have read about in a very, very long time, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer said. U.S. President Donald Trump launched an ongoing campaign of large-scale military strikes against Yemen's Houthis on March 15 over the group's attacks against Red Sea shipping, and he warned Iran, the Houthis' main backer, that it needed to immediately halt support for the group. Jessica Aber, former Virginia prosecutor who led investigation into Russian nationals carrying out fraud in U.S. as well as CIA leaks, was found dead in her home on March 22, local media reported on Sunday. Police discovered Aber unconscious at 9:20 a.m. The cause of the 43-year-old lawyer is being investigated. The former prosecutor mainly investigated cyber crimes related to Russia, the covert activities of Russian companies in the United States, leaks from American intelligence and war crimes. She played a major role in the first criminal prosecution of Russian soldiers for crimes against a U.S. citizen in Ukraine. Under her leadership, the White House charged 2 Russian nationals with large-scale cyber fraud and money laundering. The prosecutor resigned in January after Donald Trump took office as president. According to preliminary reports, her death might be linked to a long-standing medical condition.